And this is a illuminate. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Super excited you made it here today. Today we are going to be talking makeup basics, specifically foundation. I know that it can be really difficult to match your foundation and make sure that you're applying it correctly so that it doesn't look cakey and it doesn't look fake and it just really looks like natural skin. So what I'm going to do today is kind of show you a couple tricks when it comes to matching the right foundation shade, as well as techniques to make it look the most natural on your skin. And my personal favorite is blending two foundations to make the perfect mix for your face. So if you want to see how to get this easy foundation and flawless base look, tips and tricks on how to really kill it in the foundation game at home yourself, please keep watching. Alright guys, let's jump into the foundation matching portion of this video. So I have 3 foundation shades here. They're all different brands because that's just what I had in my collection. But the lightest shade is my Fenty Beauty shade in 120. This is pretty light. Then I have my CoverGirl True Blend Matte Made Foundation in L30, which is what I usually wear right now. And then a little bit darker, what I was wearing in the summer was my Urban Decay All Nighter Waterproof Longwear Liquid Foundation in 3.5. So usually if I were to get this foundation during the time of the year where I am mostly this color, it would be like 2.0. So this is 3.5, which is quite a bit darker than what I usually wear. So now that we have all the foundations in front of us, I'm going to kind of show you the trick here to matching your foundation to your face. So to start off, you should always be using your jawline here to match your foundation on, because that way when it dries down, you'll be able to see if it matches your neck or if it's a completely different color. And a lot of times this is just the best place right here to find skin tone that's flat and doesn't have a lot of discoloration, so you can really get that true match right there on your jawline. So let's do that. So we'll start with our lightest shade here. So you can see that's pretty light on my face. Next we will use that L30. That's a lot truer to my skin tone there. And the 3.5. And that's really too dark, and that will dry down too. Those are pretty thick swatches. They're obviously not blended out. But this is where you'll kind of get into a little bit of trouble and why you have to kind of gauge based on these swatches which will be the best for your skin tone. So very clearly we can eliminate this right off the bat because it's really light. And then this one back here on camera, it looks like it's the truest to my It looks like it's the truest to my skin tone. However, I can see in my mirror that it's already oxidizing to look a little bit orange on my skin. And if I were to put a full face of this on, there would be a very clear line between the foundation the foundation color and my neck color. So this color right in the middle here is going to actually, it looks a little bit light on my skin. However, I know that when it oxidizes and blends in with the rest of my face, that it's actually going to be my truest shade. And so if you're going for one shade and you don't want to mix foundations, you know, this is really the best way to do it, is this 3 test where you do, you know, one that you think is your shade plus one maybe a little bit lighter and one a little bit darker. You might be surprised at which one actually is most true to your skin tone. So I highly recommend doing the 3 swatches on your jawline. And if you are in a place like Sephora or Ulta and you're testing foundation shades out, I would go without any foundation on, put them on your jawline, walk around the store and let them completely dry down. That way you can see once they've oxidized, once they've dried down completely, you can see if they're too orange or too dark, or if their undertone kind of doesn't match yours. So that's a really good way to determine in store which shade is best for you, is by using this little jawline test. So that makes it kind of easy to pick your foundation and choose which foundation you like best. So I personally wear 2 different types of foundation at a time. I love mixing foundations. For my skin, it's the best way to kind of get the perfect foundation for me because I have a really bad combination skin right now. My skin used to be super oily. I never used to have this problem, but now my T-zone, so oily, but my cheeks are so dry. So I use 2 different kinds of foundation, and it really helps to hit those problem areas with foundation that actually matches what I'm looking for. In addition, I like to add 2 different colors together. That way, I really do get my perfect shade. So the 2 foundations that I mix together on a daily basis are the CoverGirl L30 True Blend Matte Foundation. And this is one of my all-time favorite ones, and that's what I use kind of like, I'll show you guys, but that's what I use like sort of in the T-zone and then a little bit on my jawline. And then in addition, I use the stick foundation from Flesh in shade 5. And it's really a lot lighter than my CoverGirl, but it's a little bit darker than this Fenty Beauty one. And it's perfect for getting underneath my eyes, my chin, the center of my forehead, and then right at my jawline, so that when it mixes with this foundation, there's absolutely no oxidation. It's the perfect shade for my skin, and I think it's the best way to get a really true match to your skin is to find 2 foundations that really do mix to make the perfect color, because it can be super difficult to find a foundation that is your exact shade. So just a hint or a little bit of a tip is I mix foundations. You don't have to if you find one that works for you, but a lot of people will find that in order to get their best, most true match, you do have to mix foundations. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe this swatch off right now, and then I'm gonna show you my foundation routine and the best way to apply foundation to your face. Okay, so now there are basically 2 ways to apply foundation to your face. You can do it with a beauty blender or a beauty sponge or a foundation brush. So I've gone through phases where I do both, where I was really into my foundation brush, but I have kind of gone back to my beauty blender as of recently, and I've been really just enjoying the beauty blender again. So it kind of depends on what your preference is. I really like the beauty sponge because I think it gives a more skin-like texture. I think that it has a lighter, more dewier coverage, whereas my brush is awesome for really full coverage foundation, and it's much more full coverage than a sponge, but it doesn't necessarily look exactly like skin, and I think you run the risk of looking a little bit cakier with a brush. But that's just to each his own. You can kind of determine which you like the best, but I'm going to use my beauty blender today because that's what I've been using and that's what I've been really into lately. So, but keep in mind, like if you are going to use a foundation brush, you really want it to be a flat top foundation brush, dark short bristles and the long lighter bristles, because they will really help capture that foundation and really set it into your skin. And also it just really makes it easy to kind of stipple that on your face, which is nice. This is just a BH Cosmetics foundation brush and I love it. It's super awesome. I've gone through quite a few of these brushes. And it does help too if you're looking to be more cost effective to have a brush versus a sponge, because I have to replace these every month or 2, whereas with a brush you could buy a really nice brush and have it for a year or longer without having to replace them. So cost wise it's definitely more cost effective to do a brush versus a sponge. So you can keep that in mind as well if cost is something that you are worried about. So I take my CoverGirl, put a little bit on my finger there. Then I take my Flesh foundation stick and I go under my eyes, my nose, like so. So you can see the different colors in the foundation, but once you blend them out, they look exactly what my skin tone is. Really make sure you're getting that into your jawline and even down on your neck a little bit. Then I'm going to flip this over to the pointy end. And I get under my eye there, and around my eyebrow. If I didn't do my eye makeup first for some reason, then I would take this and just like stipple it over my lids as well to kind of cover the veins there. But since I already did my eye makeup there, I don't need to do that right now. And as you can see, that is pretty much the perfect foundation shade for my face. And I know that because it started out a little bit light, that once it dries completely down, it's not going to be too dark for my skin and I will not have a foundation line, which is really, really important when you are putting your foundation on. So now I'm going to kind of include concealer in this video as well. So I use two different types of concealer. I use a blemish concealer and I use an under eye concealer. My under eye concealer is the Naked Skin Weightless Complete Coverage Concealer from Urban Decay in the shade Fair Neutral. And then my acne coverage concealer is my Tarte Creaseless Concealer in shade Light. So the reason I use two different concealers is because I don't want to use my super light under eye concealer on my blemishes because it'll just make them show up more. So instead I put this same skin tone on my blemishes so that it blends into my skin. Now this is not the same acne covering routine I use when I have severe acne breakouts. But I showed that in an Insta story that you guys really, really like, that routine. So if you guys are interested, I can also film that for a video because my technique for covering up severe acne flare-ups is a little bit different than just normal day-to-day acne. And my unborn child is wreaking havoc on my skin, so I'm sure it won't be very long before I have another severe flare-up. Also, surprise, if you haven't followed me on Instagram yet, I am expecting a baby, and my husband and I's first little one is due July of this year, so we're pretty stoked to welcome them. Okay, so moving back on, we are going in with the under eye concealer. And this is usually I go about 1 or 2 shades lighter than my skin tone and just get from the inner corner and brush it out. I also like to run a little bit down my nose, on my chin, in the center of my forehead, and that just kind of brightens up my face a little bit. And then you have the perfect flawless base with foundation. And I think you can tell it just looks really nice. There's obviously no contouring here, but using that lighter concealer shade kind of naturally starts contouring your face because it brightens up that center portion. And then when you go in with your bronzer and your blush, it really just accentuates the natural features of your face. So to kind of finalize my foundation routine, I like to go over it with a translucent powder. So this is an illuminating powder and it is from Laura Geller. It's their Baked and Glow Baked, Balance and Glow Illuminating Foundation in Porcelain. And I'm almost out of it, but it is my favorite to set my face with because it does not set it down to be completely dry. but instead it just adds like a really beautiful illumination to the face so that you keep that glowy and like dewy finish. But I feel like I can better blend out my blush and bronzer when I set my face with this versus leaving it tacky. So I feel like I get the best of both worlds with an illuminating foundation to set that off. Next, another Laura Geller favorite, which is my Beach Matte Baked Hydrating Bronzer in Sunrise Fair. And I just keep this right at the hollows of the cheekbones. And then to add just a little bit more dimension, I'm going to go in with Hoola by Benefit and concentrate that just. I like to take my sponge once I finish that and just stipple over it to make sure that bronzer is as blended as possible. Okay, so then for blush, I'm using my Urban Decay Naked Cherry palette. Just a little blushy shade. And then I top it off with my Mary Luminizer from the Balm. And that's pretty much it for my face, guys. So I'm gonna hop off, throw my lashes on, and finish my eyeshadow, and then I will be right back to chat with you. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it was really helpful in terms of kind of understanding more about foundation and how to make it look the most natural on your skin. I hope that the foundation matching trick helps you next time you go into the store to find a foundation that is best for your skin tone. And I hope that the difference between brush and beauty blender kind of helps you make the best choice there as well. I know a lot of you guys were asking about, foundation basics and makeup basics in general, so I'll probably be doing more of these tutorials. I think next up will probably be eyeshadow basics. So stay tuned for that, and then let me know in the comments below what you guys would like to see more of as well, so I can kind of cater that to you. I am so excited to have you guys hanging out with me. Be sure you hit the subscribe button before you peace out of here if you want to see more videos like this one. And I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your week or weekend, and I will catch you guys later. Bye, guys! Kind of just doesn't match it. And this is a, illuminate. Okay, so for bronzer, with the dark short bristles and the long kind of wider bristles, because it really just takes on the texture of the sponge, which doesn't necessarily fill all my pores, but it's such a bad description. And get some tips and tricks on how to make this flawless